think of it like a double bubble balloon. You press down on that fear of failure and kind of suppress it, but then that fear of success comes up. Like, what if I am successful? I am going to have to commit more time to this. I'm going to have to commit more money to this, so you drop down on that fear of success and that fear of failure comes up, right? Sort of thing. So I played with that for a little bit.
On today's show, I have Michele Rogers. Michelle's an amazing woman with her journeys, taking her down so many paths. Lucky enough, Michelle's actually my cousin, and she used to babysit me back when I was younger. So I'm sure she has some stories that I want her to keep a secret anyway. But I'm very excited to have Michele on today, and just to hear from another woman's perspective on some of the challenges, from motherhood, partnership, and just working all these businesses and all the different adventures that she's been on. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You're listening to the Revive Couple Podcast. We're Michael and Laura, and together we'll explore everything relationships, personal responsibility, feminine and masculine dynamics, communication, and just some all-around real and raw conversations.
Drawing from our 18 years together, with a bit of sarcasm, humor, tears, a few f***s, and lots of love, we deep dive into the male and female perspectives on relationships and navigating the highs and lows of life together. Sit back, grab your love mug, and let's get into today's conversation.
Hi, Michele. Welcome.
Hi. Glad to be here.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. Thank you.
Like I say, I wasn't lying in that. I'm really excited to have you on here. I know we've kind of talked off and on and with Messenger and stuff. And I've been watching your journey along the way too. And it's just exciting, and it's cool watching someone, for one, and just watching them do all these, just taking risks, doing different things, and really out there living life and not just hiding behind things and not just falling into the everyday normal routine of just life, right? So right. I guess with all that being said, let's hear a little bit about your story, and I'll let you kind of take it from where you want to start it.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, just growing up, lots of examples around me of strong women, and my dad always seemed to always want to work for himself, and so kind of got that little bit of a spirit from him too. But the biggest thing for me was, how can I be of service? And that wasn't even a thing back in the, I'm going to age myself, but the 80s, that sort of thing. Being of service wasn't really talked about, but that has always been what I do. I always try to help people in whatever way I can help. And so that's just kind of what led me all through life, not always when you're a mom, a new mom, you kind of step back from that and raise your kids and that sort of thing. But definitely as I got older, I really liked the freedom of working for myself. I liked that I could use my creative passion or abilities, when I'm working for myself. And yeah, that's just kind of what has led me. And like you said, a few businesses for sure. I've done a lot of the MLM, direct sales, network marketing kind of things over the years. Just never really, I love the products and I still use a lot of the products, but never really so passionate about them that kept me going. There's nothing wrong with the businesses. They were fine. It was me, right? At one point, opened 2 fitness facilities, brick and mortar, and did really well with those. And we changed a lot of lives. Some of my clients went on to be my coaches. Some of my clients and coaches went on to their own personal training adventures and journeys, which was really inspiring. Helping, because when you help mom, you're helping the family too, right? And I had one mom, her kids were 8 and 10, and they'd never had a vegetable in their life because she didn't like vegetables. And so she didn't know. So she took her phone, and because I was living in Turtleford at the time, and she was going shopping for some groceries. So she would hold up a vegetable and she'd say, "What's this? I don't know what this is. What do I do with this?" So I kind of coached her through technology, and her daughter made a salad that night and they loved it. Just some things that we might seem insignificant. It was huge for me to change people's lives like that. And that's kind of how I've continued on, even after shutting them down, with the oil crisis hitting, right? We talk about the challenges. That was a challenge because owning a gym, that's disposable income, right? So when that's taken away from you, when your fitness facilities are in two big oil towns, that's a little bit of hardship. My team lost their forever homes, husbands lost jobs, wives and husbands lost jobs. So it was a little bit challenging. So, but with each thing you learn.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I get that because I actually, when we lived in London, I worked for a really high-end gym for those 2 years that I was there and moved around to different locations because they're always opening different locations. So I was doing like pre-sales for them and then sales while the gyms were open and then kind of moving on to the next one that was going to open. And so I seen a lot of the ebb and flow. I really got to learn the business model and how everything worked with fitness facilities and like member intake and then seeing where the dips were and where you needed to be. And you really had to, it was just a numbers game like any business, right? So you really had to hit those numbers and meet those quotas and do all that stuff just to keep things at kind of the status quo, right? So I could only imagine because I talked about that with somebody, I can't remember, but we were talking about the oil field crash. I think it was like that one more than anything because that one was pretty tangible and pretty deep, right? So the things that would have went, we were talking about it in Red Deer here because of like yoga studios. That was kind of the first thing to get knocked because you got to go down that list of things that we're going to pay for this month. And just they seem like luxuries. Obviously they're important for health and wellness, but things just start getting stroked off the list, from housing, heat, food. After that, it's kind of everything else seems like a luxury.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And, I had two fitness facilities in two different communities. So with rent and payroll and, things people don't even realize I had to pay to play music in those facilities, insurance and everything. I was putting out over $30,000 a month between the two locations in terms of overhead. So everyone else got paid except me for about 4 years. Because I kept going. I invested everything I had. I took out all my investments and everything and piled her back into the business so I could keep going and credit cards maxed out, everything. So that was a tough go. And yeah, it is. Are we going to buy food or do I get to go to the gym? That's a pretty easy choice, right? We're gonna quit the gym and feed the family. So it's understandable how that all went.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, now I obviously had a lot of time to look back on that and reflect. And I always say that it's like, well, I've had a few failures, I guess we'll call them, but then you got to look back and like once you start connecting the dots and realizing and getting past your getting past your ego and feeling not so beat up, it's like, okay, well, what can I learn from this, and what was it, and what was the reasoning behind all of it, right? And what were some of the lessons that you kind of took away from that?
Again, because failure is talked about a lot. There's that fear of success, but also there's a fear of failure, kind of thing. So when you think of it like a double bubble balloon, you press down on that fear of failure and kind of suppress it, but then that fear of success comes up. Like, what if I am successful? Going to have to commit more time to this. I'm going to have to commit more money to this, so you drop down on that fear of success and that fear of failure comes up, right? Sort of thing. So I played with that for a little bit. And I had to stop because I did feel like a failure. Like the one gym, I had sold off the equipment to one of my coaches, so I didn't feel quite so bad about that one. But the other one, I had to shut down, just overnight sort of thing. And yeah, there was that ego of, tail between the legs and not show my face in public for a little bit because I was feeling quite ashamed that, oh, I get emotional, quite ashamed that I had let that happen, but there was nothing left. Like I had nothing left. We didn't make in that first quarter that would lead you through the quiet summer months. I didn't make that. So I had nothing. There was no investments left, no credit card room, anything. So I had nothing. And like I said, licking my wounds and in the corner in a fetal position for a few weeks after that, hiding. And then I had to stop and think. And I had a really good support team around me who reached out and kind of helped me with that a little bit and just said, look at what good you did do. Now this is kind of a TMI, a little information, but we had one lady in there who was over 400 pounds who was working out. And after about the first 6 weeks, she came to me and she said, I have to tell you that I can wipe my bottom now easier. And that's not something we think about with weight, right? And she had tears in her eyes. And I'm like, wow, you don't think about those things. But she said, I can wipe my bottom easier now.
Well, that's a
Huge,
big deal. I mean, holy cow.
right?
Like, yeah, it's something obviously you take for granted, but
Yeah.
wow, hey.
Yep. And, one day I looked out at my fitness facility here, and you know, we had a First Nation clients working out. We had African American clients working out. We had Caucasian girl there with purple hair. We had uh, a First Nations fellow who was gay and openly gay about that. We had Filipino girls working out, ladies. There's a mix of men and women. And because I think it was an afternoon, I was feeling just a little bit pouty and a little bit scared of where things were going and what am I doing and, that sort of thing. And then I looked out and I saw all these people who would not have been comfortable at a regular gym, right? And there they were, and they were being encouraged and, empowered. And yeah. So that's what I had to turn around and take a look and see. You can't think of this as a failure. You have to think of this as you changed a lot of lives, Michele. And remember that, right? Remember that. That's what I have. Every time I look back, I'm like, we changed a lot of lives. And inclusion, right? And validation for people and all those things they require. That's what my gym was about. It wasn't a regular gym. It was, we saw our people and we validated them. And that's why they came.
Wow, that's pretty special. I mean, you don't get that with a lot of business owners for one, and then I mean, just to have that retrospection on it and just look back, and at least you can take that away from it. And you did, right? You've helped a lot of people, and I'm sure you still hear a lot of those stories from people of, carrying that on, because sometimes you just need that kickstart sometimes, right? Especially with fitness, whatever it is, you just need that little bit. Once you get rolling, once you have a few people believe in you, even, it's just from there you can really roll and go on. So that's awesome. That's special. And then, so after the gyms, what did you pivot to after that?
Well, I went to work, back still in helping people. So I turned to the sexual assault center because that was important to me as well. And we got to talk to kids. My job was to go in and talk to kids in the schools and learning how to keep them safe. But we didn't only talk about that. We talked about emotions and how to, work through those emotions, those big emotions. And we talked about, sorry, I just got all the kids are at the door peeking in. We would talk about how to keep themselves safe on social media. We would talk about self-esteem, and because that's my thing, is like empowering people to feel good about themselves and that self-love. And especially our teenage girls, they come into so much power and they might use it the wrong way, so teaching them to use that power in healthy ways, teaching the young men about all that. There's that period that you might even relate to where you go through a little bit of rage and you're angry all the time and that sort of thing. So we talk about that stuff too. So that was really important to me as well. And then, I kind of just ventured off again with everything that went on in the past couple of years. We weren't able to go into schools anymore. So that was a little challenging then of, what's my purpose? Now what do I do? I want to keep helping people. So I turned to my art for a little bit, started an art business online, taught painting, because that's another way of empowering people with sketching and using their creativity, because you get people saying, I can't do that. And then they do, and you can just see that sense of accomplishment that we don't always get in our everyday lives, especially when we're living a life where we're just, you and I talked about going to work, coming home, having your supper, whatever, get up the next day, do it again, because you're tired and you lack the, you just kind of stay stagnant. And because that's what we do, as humans, for a lot of us, and mostly because we're tired and we're not feeling well.
Back with just go back a little bit on the kids and getting into schools. It's very important to me. I really take that. I love talking to youth about anything, right? And that's where I really want to start breaking a lot of those generational traumas, breaking those gaps, opening up to men, like especially the young boys, right? And talk to them about, being vulnerable feelings, but at the same time, we got to be protectives, we got to be strong, we have to be self-sufficient, all those kind of things. What did you see when you went into schools? And like you said, more for me anyway, more specifically to the boys, what kind of, because they were coming out of some probably bad situations, right? And the stuff they've seen in those young years is horrendous, and no one should have to see that stuff. What were they like? I guess what kind of temperament or like mannerisms were they having? Were they pretty shut down and recluse, or was it
Yeah.
What were you? Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of it was elementary. So we were able to, they still like people. But, we did do some junior high, high school. And yeah, a lot of them were shut down and quiet. But you could see it going, right? You could see, especially some of our programs did last up to 12 weeks. And so you could see them start to engage a little bit more to understand that it's a safe place for them to talk. Again, not many willing to talk in front of their peers, right? And to let them know, but you could tell the ones that really needed a little bit of extra one-on-one, or just someone to walk by and see them and validate them, and to say you're going to be okay. And so I would kind of, when I was at the front, I would kind of see those kids, and I could address them without actually singling them out. And you could just see a little bit of, oh, that deep breath, and somebody who understands them, and somebody who's not judging them, right? They don't have to be angry at me. I didn't ask them to go to bed early, or get off their games, or quit staying out so late, or I wasn't a disempowered parent. I did work with Sierra Bender. She's out of the States, and she teaches women's empowerment. And one of her things is, we can't send, when she worked with teens, we can't send an empowered teenager home to a disempowered mom, because that's not going to work, right? So I always have to think about that too, is, we have to consider where some of these kids come from, and they come from some pretty tough places. And, you know, trying to keep that fine line of keeping them safe always, right? So it's a constant, just checking in and checking in and checking in and checking in. And a lot of the students were very receptive.
Yeah, no, it's a tricky one, right? And I mean, it's so easy to sit there and try to analyze and do different things, but when you're actually boots on the ground and talking to these people, then right? And it's not as easy, it's not as cut and dry as like reading a book about it, or reading programs, or reading whatever about it. When you're in it and living it and talking to these kids and feeling their energy, there's a lot there that we really need to start addressing, and feel like more taking responsibility for it. We might not have been the ones that did it, obviously, like we didn't do that to them, but just to have some empathy for people, and respect, and just to have some time and take it a little slower with some people, because you don't know their story, right? You don't know what happened, you don't know any of that stuff. So it's quite tricky, and it took a long time for me to even get, like, it took me a long time to grasp that, to understand that everybody has a story, and there's always a reason behind most actions that they do, right? And no, and then get away from taking it always personal. It's like, no, what did I do? What could I have done different? It's like, no, it's not you. You're just happen to be the person right there, right? So there's a lot there. So that's awesome. Glad you did that, and helped out who you did help out. So I mean, there's a real theme of you helping people here. It's getting to be like, it seems to be like that's your MO, really. But so we did that. We did. Yeah, so you took a break, did that, and then what was after the assault center?
I went to work in like a retail kind of capacity place, and for a few months here, and then I got feeling not so good at the end of January, so I actually had to quit, because I physically couldn't do my job anymore. I ended up being very sick, and which was really hard for me, because I'm a doer. And there was days where I just laid on my chair and didn't do anything. The TV was too stimulating. The noise was too stimulating. It's like my brain stopped working, and I couldn't remember how to drive a car. I'd look at a broom, and I knew I'd have to sweep the floor, but I couldn't remember how to sweep the floor. Chest pains, I couldn't breathe. So yeah, that kind of shut me down for a few months here. But happy to say I'm back on the mend, and just doing what I can to stay healthy, because without your health, of course, not much else matters. Like it's hard to take care of your family, and it's hard to want to get up and do art. And I have lots of people saying, let's do some classes, and I'm like, I can't teach a class. Like I physically cannot teach a class right now. So yeah, sacrificing all that not sacrificing, but having to give up what you love to do. There's a whole mental game that goes with that too. That's not very fun.
No, exactly. And it is like that. It's funny when you said that. It's just like that old adage, right? Of like you spend all your time trying to get all this money and success and all these different things. But then if you let your health slip or your wellness slip, I mean, it's just, you're going to spend all that money back on trying to get your health back. Or meanwhile, if you just, had a balance, you would have been fine through the whole thing and been happy and whatever, flourish and moving on. Right. So, no, that's pretty wild. So with all that, now I always laugh because it's like, we are a relationship podcast. So with all of that going on, how did Shane handle all of this? Or where, I guess I shouldn't even say that. Where did Shane come into your life, or when did he come into your life? And then how did he help complement a lot of that?
So, yeah, I was a single mom with two kids when I met Shane. We met at reflexology class, so I kind of knew we had this a little bit of the same interest. And so, yeah, it's been going on now 22 years. I think we've been together. So, at first, it was just handling a single mom with two kids, and we did a big move, and just learning how to maneuver through that. And so, it wasn't until our son, who is now, will be 17 this year, it wasn't until till he was born, that even when he was a baby, I started a relaxation spa. I just can't be at home. I just need to be doing something. So I started a bit of a relaxation spa, meditation. I taught Reiki. I did reflexology. I did a lot of, I do a lot of things. So I like to learn, and kept up with that until we moved here. And by that time I'd been at the gyms, and he's always a support. Like he anywhere we've had to do renos, and he just pits in and does the renos, and he takes care of back here, when I'm away. For the fitness things, I was gone every 3 months to California for our mastermind, So he, holds down, he never complains. He's always really great support. And I really appreciate that, because he understands, if he comes home. And so I also have a new supplement, my own personal supplement business that I've just started. And, like yesterday, I was on the phone all day. And so the dishes didn't get done, and supper was late, and he just takes it with a grain of salt. So I'm very thankful for that he's supportive. And we have that, by the time he came along, I'd been through a few relationships, divorced, and just saw what didn't work. You talk about those life lessons. And I've never been one to really judge people. I don't hold on to anger. And not even with, but back in the day, it wasn't like holding on to anger is like poisoning yourself. There was none of those phrases back then. There was nothing. It was just, you just lived. You didn't even realize you had a choice in whether to be angry or not. Someone did something wrong to you, you'd be angry. Like not even realizing you have a choice. What? I don't have to be angry at that person? No, it's probably better if you're not. But we didn't know all of that, right? And so by the time he came along in my early 30s, I had kind of learned a little bit about that. And that was a conversation we had right at the start. Like, I'm not playing games. I'm not going to go through periods of, if you're angry at me and we don't speak for days and days on end, I'm not playing that. I'm not. Some days you're going to have to take out the garbage. Some days I'm going to have to be the one to take out the garbage. We're not keeping score. Like, I'm not playing that. So if that's the game you want to play in this relationship, just walk away now, because I'm not doing it. Life's too short, and there's too much to really love and appreciate with that. And the other thing, so then I started working with Sierra, and one thing that she taught me is, ladies, your men don't think the same as women. Our brains are not the same. You are going to have to tell him every week to take the garbage out, because he's not going to remember. You are going to have to tell Shane to pick his black socks off the floor every day and put them in the laundry room. So you can be angry at him because you have to do that every week, or you just be okay with the fact that we're going to have to remind them. And, that took that condition away, that expectation that I had of him, and just say, he just doesn't see it. And so when I remind him of whatever, oh yeah, okay, and does it, right? And that was huge. And I think so often we play in relationships, we play that game of, oh, you got to do this, I get to do this. You did this, I'm going to do this back. It's that butting heads and winning. Somebody has to always be the winner. And I can't even be bought. That doesn't feel good to me at all in any relationship. You know, it's just accepting people where they are and understanding that everyone's had their own stories and their own experiences, and that's fine. That's fine. I appreciate that in people.
Oh, it's funny you say all that because I think it's our last, like the last episode, just the past one or the one before. It was that's exactly what we talked about. It's like scorekeeping and butting heads and the competition. It was a big one, like the competition and someone needing to win and outcomes and rewards and all that kind of stuff, right? And it's like it doesn't exist. Like that doesn't it doesn't work in relationships. And I think, and it's great that you have experience with that, right? And that's how we learned. That's how I learned was experience. You have to learn those things through experience. Of it just it on paper, again, on paper or in a book or something, that it might make sense if you read it and you're like, okay, yeah, that could really work. But when emotions get into it and people's feelings, and it just doesn't work. And you nailed it with men think different, women think different. We even made fun of that, like not made fun of, but that book, like Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, right? I've never actually read it. I should really read it, but it makes so much sense. And it is, right? Like most men have their eyes set on a focus, on their purpose, on their mission, whatever that mission is, right? And women are more emotional and they're more in their emotions, and they're more
Nurturers and givers.
Yeah,
And,
exactly. Nurtures, exactly, right? So, and it's not on purpose. Most men, anyway, I should say, most men don't do that on purpose by any means. You just, again, you nailed it. We're just having to give that nudge or give a little bit of help, but don't nag. You don't have to do anything. Just know that that's kind of part of the gig. And obviously there's things that men do as well for the women that you might think, it's not even computing, but every week we're like, hey, no, you have to do this, you have to do this. And so it goes both ways, right? And like, it's so big on team. And it's funny enough, we must obviously be related, because I was preaching so much on just like making life easy. Like life's hard enough, right? Like life's hard enough with all this outside stuff happening and all these other things happening, that at home or anything in your life, you got to make that as easy as possible. And fighting or arguing or competing against this person that's with you in this whole mess is like, no, this is the person you got to team up with and do everything you can to make everything easier. So that's great. I'm really glad you touched on that. That's a really important lesson.
Yeah, I had a friend who was testing her husband, speaking of tests, and so she left a bag of garbage right where right in the hallway. You have to walk over the bag of garbage to get outside. And it was like something like 5 days and he hadn't taken the garbage out yet. And so she was annoyed, right? She kind of set him up there a little bit, but at the same time, she was proving a point. And so one of the staff where we were working at the time came in, and male staff, and we're like, why do you think he didn't pick up the garbage? And he's like, because he didn't see it. Even though he stepped over it, he didn't see it. He said, ladies, we don't see that stuff. So, which was a really good conversation to have with him, of a little eye opener too, from a man's perspective of, you got to tell us, honestly, you got to tell us, not be nagging, of course, but, you got to tell us what you want, because we're not mind readers, and yeah, no. I got this on my mind and I'm stepping over the garbage because I'm already outside working on something in my head. I didn't even see the garbage bag when I stepped over it, sort of thing. So yeah, it's just understanding that, there's all the books, the love languages, the 5 love languages was really huge for us too, really huge. And when I learned that, because I'm not just based on some experiences I've had in my past, I'm not much of a physical touch is sometimes scary for me. And also, I'm not, so there's actions, words, quality time, physical touch, and acts of service are the 5 love languages, right? And I'm acts of service. Like if you do dishes for me, that's going to get you somewhere tonight, sort of thing, right? And Shane's not. He's physical touch and words of affirmation. And so once I learned that, because, sometimes physical touch is like, that's not comfortable for me. Even if it's just a walk by and it kind of startles me a little bit. But once I realized that's what he required, I relaxed a little bit more, right? And one day he said to me, because weight has always been my up and down, and some days I'm confident about how I look, and some days, I'm not so confident. It's better now as I'm older, and he kept telling me I was beautiful every day. This man for 22 years, every day tells me many times a day how beautiful I am. I wake up hearing it. I go to bed hearing it. And it was just like bounce off, because I didn't believe that. myself, right? And so one day he said to me, do you want me to stop saying that? I'm like, no, because I liked it, but I just couldn't believe it for myself. And he said, because you don't make it very much fun for me. Which was, well, of course, and then I get all emotional because I'm sorry, I didn't realize what I was doing to you. But that's what he required that. He required to tell me that because that was his way of saying, I love you, right? But that's not what I was hearing. I was hearing when he said beautiful, then it stopped there. And I was, in my mind, I'm like, no, I'm fat and I got gray hairs and, saggy and cellulite and whatever, right? Like I couldn't hear what he was saying, and what he was saying with authenticity in my mind is like, oh, you're just saying that so you can get lucky, sort of thing, or whatever. There's an ulterior motive to what you're saying there, or it's a cop out so you don't have to say I love you, or whatever I was beating him up for. And he's like, because I'll stop saying that if you want me to. And I was like, no, I need you to keep telling me that. I didn't realize it till he said that. And I thought, if he takes that away, then I'm really ugly, sort of thing. So the mind games we play, especially as women trying to live up to societal standards, is not that much fun. But I was grateful for that lesson. So yeah, that's a good book. Once you learn somebody's love language, it's easier. It's easier.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a big one, to just sit down and you have to communicate that, and that's pretty awesome for you that Shane's even open to communicating, because that's the biggest block for most couples, right? Is that man not really wanting to break that wall down. But at least you had that and had someone to really be honest with you and tell you these things of what he needs, right? Because most guys, like most of us, won't do that, right? So it takes a lot to get to that point. So that's pretty awesome. That's pretty special. And again, I always go back to communication, because you wouldn't have known those things, right? And he wouldn't have known that. He thinks he's like, in his mind, right? He's thinking he's doing the greatest thing ever, calling this woman beautiful. And meanwhile, it's like, it almost makes you feel worse, right? And not on purpose or not whatever, right? It's just the way it happens. So,
but also not validating him, right? Like,
yeah,
he's not getting the validation he needs, because it's like he's just saying it to a dead soul sort of thing. Like he's not getting anything back in reach. Not that he was looking for that, but he just felt like he was just speaking to air, and that I wasn't validating him or appreciating the fact of what he was doing. Again, not that he required that, but it's just nice to know that, when you give a person a compliment after 10 years, at some point they're going to start saying thank you, instead of, no, I'm not, look at that. I was taking that that gift away from him, so to speak, or that whatever, that validation away from him, that fine, I'll just stop telling you, right? And so often we do that in relationships, that that's a big topic for me, is relationships too. So because we make them a lot harder than they need to be, just because we are keeping score and we're not validating each other, and we don't know each other's love language, and we don't, we get mad when they're not doing what we want. But also we have to do, I have to say words to him, and I have to let him touch me, and I have to, touch him, and, I have to say things to him, because that's what he requires. So, and he understands. Mine is acts of service. So it's kind of a win-win now.
Oh, that's such a great way to wrap that up. I mean, that's like my big part of our ethos, right? Of all of that. And it always breaks down. And like I said, for me anyway, it's always like, you just got to make it easy. Like, you just have to make it easy. Life can be easy. It just, we complicate things so much. And I mean, women, but especially as men, like, we can complicate things so much, right? Just to justify it or whatever. There's so many reasons, but no, it's pretty crazy. I get, with kind of going back to with more of the entrepreneur stuff too, and even relationship, you're in your situation, like having Shane support you, what kind of takeaways or what kind of lessons could you even take from what Shane did, and kind of give that to some of the listeners, especially the men out there, of like, how do I support my woman doing all these things? And she's trying, she's working, she's doing stuff on top of raising kids, keeping the house, doing all that. Like, what are kind of, we don't have to put a number on it, but what are a few things that a guy can really help out in, that helped you anyway, that you really seen and really helped you in your journey?
Yeah, a lot of it is because we don't feel that we're seen sometimes, right, at home, or we're trying so hard to do this and we don't seem to matter. And if you ask almost any woman or wife, they will say, I need a wife. And it's not, I used to say that all the time. Oh man, I wish I had a wife, right? Sort of thing, because and it's not even somebody to pitch in with the chores or whatever. It's just that nurturing. I understand, I see you. And I know that you've probably talked about this, is that when we come to our spouses with, oh my gosh, this happened to me today, and you just got to vent a little bit, and don't try to solve our problems, because we actually don't, we're not looking for that, right? We just want somebody to listen to us and tell us we're going to be okay. That safe spot of just get it out, so it's not circulating in here all night. Now we're lacking sleep, and all these things that's wrong with us and what we did wrong and all this sort of thing. We just need someone to bounce that off and just listen. That's huge. Because I remember, when the gyms were going bad and whatever, Shane would be like, well, just quit. Just quit. And I'm like, well, I'm in leases and I have employees. I can't just quit tomorrow, sort of thing. It wasn't that I needed him to solve that. It was just, can you just let me cry? Can you just hold me, just do the dishes tonight, just cook supper tonight, just let me have a moment to breathe and to figure this out. And I will, but I just need that safe spot to be able to do that, where I'm not going to be judged further, or where I'm not going to be, well, you're not doing this for me, you're not doing this for our family, like get beat up even more, because society beats us up enough as people, but definitely as women when we're not perfect, right? So having that safe spot at home or with our spouse of, just take the kids for an afternoon if things are kind of rough, and let me sleep all day. That sort of thing too, is like, I just need a moment to breathe. And so thank you for taking care of things for me so I can have that moment. It's huge.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. I mean, that's what Laura summed it up really well when we were coming up with one of the courses of coming up with a name, and it was Safe and Wild, because you need to feel safe, right? As women, you need to feel safe, and whatever that looks like, obviously emotionally. And if he gives you that emotional space, or lets you have that rest so you can build yourself back up to feel safe and feel protected. And yeah, it goes so far. And when she said that, even, and I knew it, like I know parts of that and knew just from all our learnings and everything that we've done together. But the more and more I talk to people, the more and more people that Laura helps, that I help, that we help together with all of that, it's safety, right? And it's not in the nowadays, I guess it's not so much in the safety of like we're walking in the bush and someone's going to get us or trying to bonk me over the head and take Laura away, kind of thing. That doesn't really exist too much anymore. But it's just safety, yeah, a lot of emotional safety, and still that physical safety of having that protection, right? And being that man that can still turn it on if he has to, and make sure that we're okay, but even protect me and just give me a hug, or let me sleep in let me sleep in at least, right? And take some of that pressure off. So no, that's great. And that's a really good way to great way to sum that up, because hearing it from a woman too, from a woman's perspective, is it goes miles. So thank you for that, Michele. I guess gonna wrap this up, but I guess a couple more. I got one more of like what especially being entrepreneurial, like you're definitely not scared to take some risks and put it out there, right? Which I love. I admire that. It's a great skill that people should have. I wish more people had that, because it's just get out there and do it. But what are a couple things that, I know we kind of touched on it with support, but what are a few more steps, I guess you could say, or kind of support systems that a guy could help his wife or his girlfriend that's really looking to get entrepreneurial, even looking to start out, maybe starting an MLM, maybe starting a brick and mortar, whatever that is, but just a few things that you can help even initially. Maybe let's say off the start, someone comes to you and be like, hey, Michele, I want to join your team with whatever with what you're doing right now. I'm going to take off, but what can that man do in the background when your wife or your girlfriend comes home just excited and like, hey, I got this opportunity, I want to do this, and then not right away sit it down and push it all down? Like what are a few things that you've seen that could be some support?
Again, just letting her, as a woman, and there's so few times that we're authentically happy and we're authentically excited, that, because again, we have, you talk about that safety. we don't feel safe, right? We go to we go to a grocery store, and the magazines there are pointing out, every magazine is pointing out how imperfect we are, because we don't have the perfect body, we don't have the perfect hair, we don't have the perfect house, we don't have the, our children get dirty and messy, and sometimes, have cereal for supper. And so we're always getting beat up as women. And so when she comes to you and she's excited, and she, support that, and ask her, what do you need me to do? What do you need me to do? Because it might be different for some women. Some women can take it all and handle it all. The house, the home, the business, the everything. I marvel at these people, because I don't necessarily have that in me, right? But some may require, can you watch the kids for 2 hours on Tuesday night while I make my calls, or while I do my business Zooms, or whatever. Laughing at a spouse because, oh, you fell for that. I can't believe you fell for that. That's a pyramid scheme. That's a Ponzi scheme. That's you just got taken, and I'm not going to support you. But it's not just this sort of thing. Like, I probably had about 10 women that came to one gym or the other, that the one had lost about 40 pounds, and her husband said, if you lose any more weight, I'm out of here. Because he was scared she was going to leave him and cheat on him, because she felt good about herself. And when you feel good about yourself, you exude just a little bit different energy, right? And you feel more empowered and more confident, and you feel good, and you're smiling more and laughing more. And for some people, when they're used to you being sad or blue or not putting yourself out there, you're at home, they know where you are, sort of thing, that scares them. That was a huge one for the gyms, is that men might feel threatened by your success, because they think you're going to leave them. And I've had that conversation with men about that, and absolutely, that's right. I had another woman who wanted to come to the gym, and her husband wouldn't let her have the car to come to the gym. So because he feared her feeling well and good, and she was going to leave him, or whatever it is, right? That, I don't know, there's a certain power that women have that can be intimidating for men, sort of thing. And when you're used to powering over somebody, and they're kind of, building themselves up despite that, that can be a huge threat. So don't, just don't look at your spouse as a threat. Look at them as, like you said, that team. How can we manage this together? Because I want the very best for you. And I learned that right from, when about the time Shane and I were starting to get together, is, what marriage is? It's about helping that person be the best person they can be. How can you do that for them? And to me, that's what a relationship is. How can I help Shane be the best person that he can be? How can I do that? Am I going to beat him up every time he wants to go fishing without me? Why would I do that? Why can't he go fishing with the guys? I don't say, well, you went fishing with the guys for the weekend, so now I get to go shopping with the girls. It's that, again, that goes back to that keeping score. So just ask your partner, what do you need from me? And honor that. Ask authentically and honor that, because it's going to be different for everybody. And let them know you see them, and validate them, and say, I know this is really hard, and I know this might be a little bit challenged for you, but I got you. I got you, and I'm going to help you. Even if you think it's all whacked and they're going to be, taken for all their money or whatever. Sometimes it works out really well. And, that's going to benefit the whole family. When mom's happy, they say, like, when mom's happy, then everybody's happy, so to speak, right? But when mom's feeling disempowered, that shows up in the relationship and a family as well. So take care of her, honor yourself too as men, right? We're not gonna, dishonor what we require too, but create that balance. And again, that's with communication. Communicate what we need. Don't bottle it up, because neither partner's a mind reader, right? So if you're going 3 days without talking to your spouse and they don't know why, you have to communicate what. If Shane and I ever have I know something's going on in his mind, and I'm like, did he? Because I would never intentionally, say anything to hurt him or anybody. So, but sometimes he might take something I do or say as the wrong way. So tell me, because I can't read your mind. I don't know what I said. So tell me. We don't scarcely have those moments, but communicate. That's what it boils down to.
Oh.
And don't keep score. Sorry, I go off. I'm like you, I go off because this is very important to me. So
No, that's awesome. That's great. And that's a great way to wrap it up. I mean, that you kind of nailed everything that I'm a big believer on again. So, I mean, that's awesome. That's great to hear more people think that way and hear more people are putting that out in the world. So, to wrap, I guess, yeah, to wrap that all up, I mean, where can more people find you, Michele?
Well, I just started a wellness business because I do have a life coaching, like I do a lot of things, like I said. So with not feeling well, I just came across some products that actually changed my life in about 4 days. I went from a big blob I'm looking at my chair, mess of not being able to breathe, chest pain, fatigued, exhausted, scared, crying, not well, person to within 4 days got myself back, not 100%, but 1,000% from where I was. And that I have to scream that out to the world because it did change me, and it changed a few of my friends, going through some health things too. So it was the proof I needed, and it just felt good. And so I'm kind of building a little bit of a wellness business around that, but it's also including my life coaching, my empowerment, meditation. I have a YouTube channel on meditation. Any way I can help people to just breathe and not take life so seriously, and to understand, does this matter? Is this going to matter a year from now? Probably not. So why are you letting it control you now? Or why are you letting this situation that happened 5 years ago still play with that itty bitty shitty committee up here? Like, why are you letting that itty bitty shitty committee up there win? So it's just about trying to get people to loosen up and have fun in life, and not turn around when you're 80 or 90 or at the end of your life and go, well, that sucked. I spent that whole time being mad, or I spent that whole time not loving myself, or I spent that whole time, worried about, having a clean house and being perfect, which is just a distraction, by the way. Anyway, that's another topic. And, why I just want people to get to the end of their life and go, yep, I did it. And I did it well, and I did it proud, and I did all the things I wanted to do, and I loved hard, right? And I just let people be who they want to be, and that's what I try to teach on my new page, which is on Facebook right now, because I don't have my TikTok up yet, or Instagram, but it's Be Well with Michele Rogers. And it just started. It's only 2 weeks old, so we have a little ways to go, but that's where I am.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, again, thank you. I appreciate this time, and I appreciate your time, and this is pretty awesome. There's so much to unpack in that, and I really appreciate everything that everything you brought to us. So again, thank you. I love you, and thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, and I love you too. And I love what you're doing. I just love what you guys are doing, because you're just, we're on that same level of, yeah, life is good, life is fun, and when the hard bits come, if you just remember that, they're not so hard in the end. Everyone's got hardships. Everyone goes through some really tough stuff, but it's okay to be sad. It's okay to mourn. It's okay to be angry, whatever you do, but try to find your way back to that new normal of finding what joy you can. Not many people know what brings them joy in life. So if you can find that, stick with it, because it's great when you live there. So thank you, Mike, for having me on.
Thanks for listening. Check out our offerings on social media at The Revived Couple and online at therevivedcouple.com. Have a request for a show topic? We love that. Send us an email at michael@larocklife.com or DM at The Revived Couple.
And don't forget to rate, subscribe, and review.